President Donald Trump's longtime bodyguard told congressional investigators this week that someone offered to send 5 women to Trump's hotel room during a 2013 trip to Moscow for the annual Miss Universe pageant. But the bodyguard, Keith Schiller, said he quickly rejected the offer, and testified that he was not aware of Trump participating in any compromising activity on the trip, according to 2 people familiar with his testimony. Schiller spoke during a closed-door session with members of the House Intelligence Committee for nearly 3 hours Tuesday. The panel is one of several on Capitol Hill investigating Russia's efforts to interfere with the 2016 election. Story continues below. Advertisement. The 2013 trip is of particular interest to investigators because it provided the backdrop for one of the most salacious allegations in a dossier of opposition research compiled during the election, claiming a broad conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russian government to aid Trump's candidacy. One memo included in the file contained an unsubstantiated account of Trump engaging with prostitutes in a Moscow hotel room during that trip. Schiller, who traveled frequently with Trump, told investigators that he knew of no such activity during the trip. The offer for women came at a morning business meeting at the Ritz-Carlton in Moscow to discuss the pageant, which was being produced by a company owned by Trump. Schiller told investigators that about 15 people had been present for the meeting, including Emin Aglarov, a Russian pop star, and his father, Aras Aglarov, a business tycoon linked to the Kremlin. As Schiller sat in the back of the room, a man with a foreign accent unknown to him approached the bodyguard with the offer, he said. Schiller testified that he did not treat it seriously and quickly said no thanks, according to one of the people familiar with the testimony, who requested anonymity to discuss answers that had been given behind closed doors. Schiller said he relayed the story to Trump when they were returning to his hotel room later that night. The men shared a laugh, he said. Schiller told investigators that he stood guard outside Trump's door after he retired for the night, before eventually leaving to go to sleep himself, the person said. Details of Schiller's testimony were earlier reported by NBC News. Story continues below. Advertisement. Stuart A. Sears, a lawyer representing Schiller, declined to comment. Scott Balber, a lawyer for Emin and Aras Aglarov, said the men were not aware that any such offer had been made to Schiller. It is the case that my clients certainly were not involved in that, and certainly are not aware that it happened, Balber said. A former New York Police Department officer, Schiller has worked for Trump since the early 2000s, when he was hired as the head of security at Trump Tower in Manhattan. He accompanied Trump on business trips and later crisscrossed the country with him during the presidential race. After Trump won the presidency, Schiller followed him into the White House, serving until September as the director of Oval Office operations. Though they spent considerable time asking about the Moscow trip, committee members also queried Schiller widely about his work with Trump, asking for details like where he worked in Trump Tower, how he communicated with Trump, and whether he was ever asked by Trump for advice, according to a Republican official involved in the investigation.